Welcome back to the halftime show here on K105. It's time for another edition of Cougar Conversations. Today, we are off campus at Byrd Tool talking with Grayson County High School Technology Center Principal Matt Hayes joining us. We've had him on multiple times, and I think we've made the comment with you that it could be one of those things that we could probably have you on every single week because every single time you teach me something new about what you have going on here. But the first couple of months have been different for here because, as I mentioned, we're not on campus. What has that scenario and that transition been like?
Well, actually, it's difficult anytime you have change, but it's been a really good change. I mentioned earlier to you, I've not had a single student complain one time about coming to Byrd Tool. And one really nice thing is the fact that students can directly see what they're learning and how it applies in the real world. Byrd Tool walks through, Behemoth walks through. Some of the other industry partners tend to be in this space a little bit more often than they would be at school. So it's just a lot easier transition for them. With some of the industry partners less than 5 minutes away, it's different than I've got to drive out to school and go through all that process. But right now we have machining, some computer programming, engineering, and then welding and automotive here at Byrd Tool. So, honestly, there's a lot of moving parts, but everybody in the community and at the board and at the school level have just been fabulous to work with. So just feel very blessed to even be in a space and not just be sitting in a book and lose all those technical skills.
The reason as to why you are here is because if you've been on campus, we've talked about this last week with Superintendent Robinson and a couple of times. I think we even talked about it with Shane Decker to open up the year as well. There's a little bit of construction happening on campus. Your building that you once had your nice office in is no longer. Because there's a brand new technology center happening. What are you seeing in the building process of this brand new technology center?
Well, one nice thing about the new building is going to be, for the most part, all the CTE programs are going to be in one space. And so just recently we had a community member ask for volunteers for Scare on the Square. And because, most of the teachers that are at the high school are able to just talk across the hall and get volunteers for that. So what we're really excited is just it's going to allow for a lot more collaboration with every CTE program but culinary being in that space. And so I just think that helps provide a lot of unity. It provides an opportunity for students to see connections between different content areas. And I think anytime you can get cross-curricular, it's just going to let kids see that what they're doing in school matches what they need to be able to do when they become a taxpayer.
With this new building, I don't think the public even really realizes everything that's going into this. What is the new building going to have that the old building did not?
Well, most importantly, and I've tried to say this a lot, is just electricity.
Is that important?
I mean, we laugh all the time, right? Like you have a technology center, and we're having to unplug things to plug things in. And our maintenance was great. And I can't tell you how many times I'll be like, "Hey, can we do this? Well, we have to take this electricity out, or you can plug this in." And so there's so many. I've actually said for our machining program, this space is actually better than at school because they have the electricity that they need to run the equipment. We took a group of kids to Western to tour the engineering program, and the students that are in some engineering/machine classes were like, we actually have a nicer robotic arm than you all do. We actually have a nicer lathe than you all do. We have this wire machine that Western doesn't have. And so our ambassador was a student, an engineer there, and as we kind of talked about the robotic stuff that we have, she was like, I didn't have any of that in high school. So just the fact that our students can actually use all of the supplies and materials and the equipment we have at one time, it's mind-boggling to just kind of think about that. And the fact that we've added 2 pathway teachers that really didn't have space. I mean, we were literally just any space that you could find to put students in. I think that it'll just be a tremendous asset for our students in our community.
I know we were having a conversation a couple of months ago. I saw you at school one day. I think I was filming one of these interviews, and you mentioned to me that you had a say in the design process of some of this. I think you noticed in some of the plans that this was supposed to be that, but really you felt like it should have been different and so on. What were some of those ideas that you were able to do to help make this more efficient?
Yeah, very blessed that they asked, but just because you run a building every day, there's just things you don't think about. Like our building and apartment maintenance had been in the front. Well, I mean, obviously when you're building an apartment, there's just a lot of supplies that you're pulling out. And so anytime we would get a car, it would have to go past, screws, nails, wires, and so I've just said, hey, is there any way we can move building an apartment to the end of the building so that our cars aren't constantly driving past that? So that's just one example of, just just, hey, as you kind of think about what a building looks like and you run the building every day and you work with the staff that needs that, maybe let's move this here, let's tweak this here. We had a lot of say in welding. There's a lot of ways to do exhaust. And so just so blessed to have some say in where space. Teachers actually were able to just basically look at the blueprint and just say, well, I want this piece of equipment here, I want this piece of equipment here, or that space would be more suitable if I were able to do these things. We're going through needs lists right now. Do you want laptops? Do you want desktops? And so, all business and marketing, for example, like they're still Microsoft Office systems. So we really need desktops that can run, Word and PowerPoint. And so just so blessed to have that much say, and just means a whole lot to know that the opinions of the staff are important and are going to drive what the process looks like.
I guarantee there's someone watching today that is a fan of the football teams but doesn't have a student in Grayson County schools. Maybe they've graduated, or maybe they're just a community member that likes cheering on the teams watching this broadcast. And they might say, okay, yeah, this sounds great, but how is this going to affect me? For the community, how is this new technology center going to impact the community in different ways?
Sam, it's funny that you said that. I walked through an AP seminar classroom just before this, and the student was like, you're the CTE principal, you need to leave. And I just said, well, all of our funding is based on you all being academically ready. And so let me tie that back a little bit. Just if you all don't know, I've worked with our AP students as well. We just had $17,500 worth of checks were given to our students because of how they did on AP tests. So that's $17,500 that those students are going to put back in the community. So every time I look at a student that earns an industry certification, 96% it changes, but it's always in the high 90s of students that complete a career and technical education program are more successful on any measure. They make more money, they're happier, they pay more taxes, obviously. They have a higher salary. So I just say anytime that a student can be involved in a pathway, they understand course sequence, they understand that they have to do something in a certain manner, in a certain process, and at the end of that, they're going to obtain something. I would just think that's what we would want for all of our young adults. So without putting a monetary value on it, we help create students that know that you need to do something in a certain sequence or order in order to accomplish a goal. I just think that we would want all young adults, older adults, young children to understand that there is a reward for doing something in a certain process. So,
Byrd Tool, where we are now, you touched on it a little bit. Your partnership with them has allowed you to have half of this building here that we are in right now. What has that partnership been like?
They've just been absolutely fabulous. We would come in and say, well, what do you think about this? We don't care, whatever you need. Electricity here, sure. So it's just great to know that you can go to a community partner and ask for something. And they've not said no on anything. When we talked about needing heat for the space, okay, let's do it like this. When we talked about using the restrooms in a certain, just everything's been yes. Anything to help the community. And that's really what they've said. Even leasing the space, they're not charging what most people would charge for the space, because at the end of the day, they know that it's going to help our students, which is going to help their community, which gives them a workforce that they can use to be a successful business. So just so appreciative for the Byrds and all that they've done for our students and our community.
I know you always like to say when we talk about this is that if the community ever has ideas of things that, hey, we need this, they can always contact you, because especially with this new building, this idea that they might have might be something that your students can help with, right?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Again, you mentioned that. I had just a local business partner that I'm not going to talk about. They came and they were like, hey, what about like this? How would this look? And so they are having a hard time hiring, just like a lot of people are. And I said, well, I don't know that we can have like a full pathway like that, but we can help identify students that we think would want to do that. So Monday we had a PD day. 2 members of that organization came and talked with our staff and just said, hey, we're here if you have students that want to go into this field. And so we sat and we had a half an hour conversation with all the CTE teachers and how to kind of develop that. Part of that, if we have advisories, that's part of what we have to do. We meet twice a year. The automotive advisory met Monday, and we kind of laughed a little bit. From that, we have talked about, we've had a kids college for the past couple of years. We want to do an advanced manufacturing week for adults. and, maybe you come in and you learn how to change your oil or how to change a tire correctly, and maybe learn some basics of 3D printing. So we don't really know what that's going to look like, and we're not really sure if we're going to be able to pull that off yet. And I'm kind of talking out of turn a little bit, but it was really nice to just kind of bring that up to the automotive advisor, and they were like, well, what are your requirements? And I said, well, I don't want them to have to go buy specialized tools. So what can you do at home to make sure that your car's safe and maybe save the community a little bit of money? So they talked about like changing your cabin filter. I think it's like $90 to go have that done someplace. So we just talked about what are some things that we can do to the community and help the community understand what we do and help them understand how we try to help our students be better members of society. So I guess those are just, again, like I'm always willing to listen. And sometimes it's got to be a little bit creative, and it might not look exactly what you think it's going to look like. But I'm here to listen and try to make this a community a better place.
The brand new Grayson County Technology Center is going to be open soon. I know when we talked to Superintendent Robinson last week, he's hoping for fall break of next year. Is that still the plan, you think?
Listen, if Mr. Robinson said fall break, tickles me to death. So
there we go. Happening soon. Looking forward to seeing that, and appreciate you taking the time here on this week's edition of Cougar Conversations. Remember that you can go back on our YouTube channel and watch all of them all season long, but for now, we'll get back to the action as this has been the halftime show here on K105.